What happens when the invisible, overweight waitress at Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant finally snaps? She didn't just yell at a rude customer. She humiliated the most feared syndicate boss on the East Coast. She expected a bullet. Instead, she got an American Express Centurion card and an ultimatum. The Wellington was the kind of Manhattan establishment where a reservation took 6 months, and the clientele wore their net worth like armor. Beneath the glittering Austrian crystal chandeliers, deals were struck that shifted the city's skyline. For Harper, it was just another Tuesday night of aching arches and swallowing her pride. Harper was an exceptional waitress. She knew the wine pairings for every seasonal dish, could carry 3 heavy porcelain plates on one arm, and possessed the rare ability to read a table's mood in seconds. She was also fat. In the hyper-manicured, image-obsessed world of elite fine dining, her body was often treated as an unspoken faux pas by the management, tolerated only because she was undeniably the best on the floor. She had grown used to the invisible barrier between herself and the wealthy patrons who looked right through her, until Damien Rossi walked in. Damien didn't just enter a room, he altered its atmospheric pressure. The alleged head of the Rossi crime family, though the New York Times carefully referred to him as a logistics and real estate magnate, he moved with a terrifying stillness. He was flanked by 4 men in tailored Brioni suits, men who looked like they preferred breaking bones to eating truffles. Mr. Henderson, the Wellington's perpetually sweating manager, practically sprinted to intercept them. "Mr. Rossi, your private alcove is ready. Harper will be your dedicated server this evening." Harper smoothed down her black apron, took a deep breath, and approached table 41. She went through the motions perfectly. The first hour passed in a tense, simmering quiet. Damien barely spoke, sipping a glass of Macallan 25, his dark, heavy-lidded eyes scanning the room with predatory boredom. It was his underboss, a loud, flashy man named Leo, who caused the problem. Leo had been drinking heavily. When Harper approached the table to pour their $4,000 bottle of Chateau Margaux, she had to lean slightly over the table to reach Leo's glass. "Careful there, sweetheart," Leo slurred, his voice carrying over the ambient jazz music. "Don't lean too hard. The table's mahogany, but I don't think it can support that kind of tonnage." The other men at the table snickered. Mr. Henderson, hovering a few yards away, suddenly found the ceiling tiles fascinating. Harper froze. She had endured snide remarks, condescending glances, and the occasional stiffed tip. But the blatant, cruel public humiliation, delivered with a sneer of pure superiority, snapped something fundamental inside her. Harper didn't cry. She didn't shrink away. Slowly, she placed the heavy, dust-caked bottle of Bordeaux perfectly in the center of the table. She straightened her spine, pulling her shoulders back, her presence suddenly demanding as much space as her body naturally occupied. "Is there a problem with the service, sir?" Harper asked, her voice dangerously calm, ringing out clearly in the suddenly quiet dining room. "Just offering some structural advice," Leo scoffed, looking to his boss for approval. Damien Rossi didn't smile. He was watching Harper. "I see," Harper said. She turned her gaze away from the grinning underboss and locked eyes directly with Damien. Everyone in the restaurant knew who he was. Everyone knew you didn't look the boss in the eye. Harper didn't care. The adrenaline was a roar in her ears. "Mr. Rossi," Harper said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass, "I was under the impression that men of your stature demanded discipline and class from their subordinates. If this man works for you, he is a direct reflection of your leadership." A collective gasp echoed from the surrounding tables. One of the bodyguards instinctively reached inside his jacket. Damien raised a single gloved finger. The bodyguard froze. Harper wasn't done. She gestured toward Leo with utter disdain. He is wearing a $60,000 Patek Philippe watch, drinking wine that costs more than my rent, yet he possesses the manners of an alley cat fighting over a dumpster. I am here to serve you a world-class meal, not to serve as a punching bag for a man who is clearly overcompensating for his own deep-seated insecurities. Leo's face turned violently red. You stupid, fat Enough. The word didn't just come from Damien. It seemed to vibrate out of him. It was spoken softly, but it hit the table like a gavel. Leo snapped his mouth shut, the color draining from his face as quickly as it had arrived. Damien leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. He looked at Harper. He didn't look at her with disgust, or anger, or even mild amusement. He looked at her as if she were a complicated puzzle he had just discovered. He took in her flushed face, her steady hands, her absolute refusal to back down despite knowing exactly who he was. "What is your name?" Damien asked softly. "Harper," she said, her chin raised. "And I won't be serving this table for the rest of the evening. Have a pleasant night, gentlemen." She turned on her heel and walked away. She didn't look back. She walked straight through the kitchen swinging doors, took off her apron, handed it to a horrified Mr. Henderson, and walked out into the cold New York night, certain she was a dead woman walking. Harper spent the night in her cramped Queens apartment, jumping at every creak of the floorboards. She triple-locked the door and slept with a baseball bat next to her bed. By the time the sun rose over the East River, exhaustion had overridden her panic. She expected to be fired via text. Instead, her phone rang at 9 a.m. sharp. It was Mr. Henderson. "Harper," he hissed, sounding out of breath. "You need to come in, now, through the front door, not the service entrance." When she arrived at the Wellington, the restaurant was empty save for the morning prep crew. Mr. Henderson was standing by the hostess stand, wringing his hands. Beside him stood a man in a flawless charcoal suit, holding a matte black leather box. "Is he here to kill me?" Harper asked bluntly, gripping the strap of her canvas tote bag. The man in the suit smiled thinly. "Miss Hayes, I am a courier for the American Express Centurion Concierge Service. I was instructed to deliver this directly into your hands. I need your signature, please." Harper stared at him. She signed the digital pad mechanically. The man bowed his head and left the restaurant. "Open it," Mr. Henderson whispered, his eyes wide. Harper cracked the seal on the black box. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, was a heavy titanium black card. It was an American Express Centurion card, the mythical black card, infamous for having no credit limit and requiring an invitation and a massive initiation fee just to hold. She picked it up. It felt like cold metal. Stamped on the front, in gleaming silver letters, was her name, Harper Hayes. Tucked beneath the card was a heavy cardstock note, written in sharp, aggressive cursive. "Your assessment of my employee was accurate. He has been disciplined. Courage is a rare currency in my world, Harper. Most people lie to my face. You told me the truth in front of a crowded room. Take the day off. Go to Bergdorf Goodman. Buy a dress that matches your temper. A car will collect you at your apartment at 8 o'clock tonight. Dr." "Mother of God," Mr. Henderson breathed, reading over her shoulder. "Harper, what did you do?" "I think," Harper said, her voice shaking slightly, "I just got asked out on a date by the mob." She should have cut the card in half. She should have packed her bags and moved to Ohio. But as Harper looked at the heavy titanium card, a dormant, rebellious spark ignited in her chest. For 28 years, she had made herself small. She had apologized for taking up space. She had worn cheap, ill-fitting clothes because the fashion industry told her she didn't deserve luxury. Buy a dress that matches your temper. Harper walked out of the restaurant and hailed a cab to Fifth Avenue. Walking into Bergdorf Goodman as a plus-size woman usually meant being directed to a dark, hidden corner on the top floor, or being looked at with thinly veiled pity by rail-thin sales associates. When Harper walked into the designer floor in her worn jeans and oversized sweater, a sleek saleswoman with a tablet immediately stepped into her path. "May I help you find something?" the associate asked, her tone dripping with polite condescension. "Our casual wear is actually located at a different branch." Harper didn't speak. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the titanium black card, and placed it flat on the glass display counter. It made a heavy clink. The associate's eyes dropped to the card. The condescension evaporated instantly, replaced by sheer, unadulterated panic and immediate deference. "I need an evening gown," Harper said, her voice steady. "Something dramatic. Something that takes up space. And I don't care if you have to call a tailor in right now to adjust it. We have until 7 p.m. The next 6 hours were a blur of measuring tape, silk, and champagne. Harper settled on a custom-altered, deep emerald green gown by Christian Siriano. It didn't hide her curves. It weaponized them. It featured a plunging neckline and a sweeping train that commanded the floor. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the invisible waitress from the Wellington. She saw a queen. At exactly 8 p.m., a blacked-out Maybach pulled up to her apartment building in Queens. The driver opened the door, refusing to meet her eyes. She was driven into the heart of Manhattan, pulling up to the private underground entrance of the Baccarat Hotel. She was escorted up a private elevator that bypassed the lobby entirely, the doors opening directly into a 2-story penthouse suite that smelled of cedar and expensive leather. Damian Rossi was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the glittering grid of the city. He was wearing a dark suit with no tie, holding a crystal tumbler. He turned around as the elevator doors chimed. For a long moment, the ruthless syndicate boss didn't say a word. His eyes tracked over her, from the emerald silk draping over her hips to the defiant tilt of her chin. The silence stretched, thick and charged with a dangerous electric tension. "I see," Damian finally murmured, his voice dark and smooth, "that you found the dress." "And I see," Harper replied, gripping her clutch to hide her shaking hands, "that you actually thought I could be bought with a piece of titanium." Damian let out a low, rough laugh that sounded completely foreign in the quiet room. He set his glass down and walked slowly toward her. "Harper," he said, stopping just inches away, looking down into her eyes. "If I thought you could be bought, I would have sent cash. I sent the card because I wanted to see what you would do with power when it was finally handed to you." He reached out, his knuckles lightly grazing the silk on her shoulder. "Now," he whispered, "tell me what else you're capable of." Harper stood frozen, the heavy silk of her emerald gown brushing against the hand-woven Persian rug beneath her feet. Damian Rossi's presence was a physical weight in the room, an undeniable force of gravity that threatened to pull her under. His knuckles lingered on her shoulder for only a fraction of a second, but the heat of his touch burned through the fabric, leaving a trail of electricity in its wake. She had expected intimidation, perhaps a violent reprimand for her insolence back at the Wellington. Instead, she was met with a dangerous, intoxicating curiosity. Capable, Harper echoed, forcing her voice to remain steady. She took a deliberate half-step back, creating a necessary boundary between them. I am capable of serving a 5-course meal to 50 demanding aristocrats without dropping a single fork. I am capable of maintaining my dignity when men like your underboss mistake my physical size for a lack of intelligence. I am not, however, capable of being another shiny object in your penthouse. A slow, genuine smile ghosted across Damien's lips. It was a terrifyingly handsome expression, one that softened the harsh, ruthless angles of his jawline. He gestured toward a sprawling, custom-built mahogany dining table set near the floor-to-ceiling windows. The glittering tapestry of Manhattan's skyline sprawled beneath them, a sea of diamonds scattered across black velvet. "Sit with me, Harper," Damien instructed, his tone shifting from a command to a soft invitation. "No bodyguards, no underbosses, just dinner." Harper hesitated, her grip tightening on her clutch, but the sheer absurdity of her reality pushed her forward. She walked toward the table, her head held high, the magnificent train of her gown whispering against the floor. A private chef, an older Italian man, introduced only as Vincenzo, emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 porcelain plates. The aroma of white truffles, seared Wagyu beef, and reduction of Barolo wine filled the space. As Vincenzo poured them each a glass of pristine Domaine de la Romane Conti, Damien sat directly across from her. He did not touch his food immediately. Instead, he watched her, analyzing her every movement. "You think I brought you here to be a trophy," Damien stated, swirling the ruby liquid in his crystal glass. "You think this is a billionaire's fleeting amusement, a morbid fascination with the woman who yelled at the mob." "The thought crossed my mind," Harper replied, slicing into the impossibly tender Wagyu. She took a bite, forcing herself not to moan at the exquisite culinary perfection. "You live in a world where everyone bows to you. My refusal to bow is a novelty. But novelties wear off, Mr. Rossi. And when they do, they are usually discarded. I do not intend to be discarded." "Damien," he corrected softly, "and you are entirely wrong about my intentions. You are not a novelty, Harper. You are a mirror." Harper paused, her fork hovering in the air. "A mirror?" "My world," Damien began, leaning back in his leather chair, the city lights reflecting in his dark eyes, "is built on a foundation of absolute deception. The men who work for me, the politicians I fund, the judges I entertain, they all lie. They smile to my face while calculating the exact angle required to slip a knife between my ribs. Leo, the man you so accurately dressed down yesterday, is a prime example. He has been skimming from our shipping ports in Red Hook. He believed I was completely blind to his insubordination. His blatant disrespect toward you at the restaurant was not just cruelty. It was a deliberate test of his own untouchability in my presence." Harper felt a sudden, icy chill creep down her spine. The stakes of that interaction at the Wellington were astronomically higher than she had realized. "By speaking to him the way you did," Damien continued, his voice dropping an octave, "by publicly humiliating him when he thought he was untouchable, you did not just defend your own honor, you shattered his illusion of power. You did what none of my hardened lieutenants had the spine to do. You looked a bully in the eye and completely dismantled him using nothing but the truth." Damien set his glass down, resting his forearms on the table. "I do not need a trophy, Harper. I have enough beautiful, hollow things in my life. What I need is someone who sees the world exactly as it is, without the distortion of fear. I need someone who cannot be intimidated. Someone who knows the value of loyalty because she has had to fight for her own self-respect every single day of her life. Harper's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The vulnerability in his assessment caught her entirely off guard. For years, she had been told that her body was a liability, a barrier to love, success, and respect. Society had trained her to apologize for her very existence, but Damien Rossi looked at her and saw a warrior. He saw a woman whose lifetime of enduring societal cruelty had forged an unbreakable core of titanium. "And what exactly does this realization mean for me?" Harper asked, her voice dropping to a cautious whisper. "Because I am just a waitress from Queens, Damien. I don't know the first thing about running shipping ports or managing crime syndicates. I know wine pairings. I know how to handle an angry hedge fund manager who didn't get his favorite corner booth." "It means," Damien said, standing up and walking slowly around the table until he was standing directly behind her chair, "that you are going to leave the Wellington. You are going to step out of the shadows, and you are going to stand by my side, not behind me, beside me." He leaned down, his face mere inches from hers, the intoxicating scent of cedar and expensive cologne wrapping around her senses. "Leo will retaliate," Damien murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "His pride has been mortally wounded. He cannot strike at me directly, so he will look for the weakest link. He believes that link is you. I am going to prove him completely, utterly wrong." The transition from a struggling waitress to the most protected woman in Manhattan was violent and disorienting. Harper did not return to her cramped apartment in Queens. Instead, her life was relocated to a sprawling, high-security estate in Southampton, guarded by men who carried suppressed firearms and spoke in clipped professional tones. Damien was not a gentle mentor, but he was fiercely devoted. Over the next 3 weeks, he integrated Harper into the legitimate fronts of his empire. She sat in on high-stakes real estate negotiations in glass-walled boardrooms overlooking Wall Street. She learned to read financial ledgers, identifying the subtle inconsistencies that indicated embezzlement. Her ability to read a room, honed from a decade of anticipating the needs of elite diners, translated flawlessly to the cutthroat world of corporate espionage and syndicate politics. She could spot a liar from a microscopic twitch of their jaw. She could identify a hidden alliance by the way two executives subtly mirrored each other's body language. And through it all, she did not change who she was. She refused to diet. She refused to hide her curves in shapeless, dark clothing. With the unlimited resources of the black card, Harper built a wardrobe of custom-tailored, vibrant designer suits and breathtaking gowns that commanded absolute attention. When she walked into a room, she took up space unapologetically. The tension, however, was a coiled spring waiting to snap. Leo had vanished the night of the incident at the Wellington, taking a faction of loyal soldiers with him. The streets of New York whispered of a coming war. The climax arrived on a stifling Tuesday evening in late August. Damien was hosting the annual charity gala for the Rossi Foundation at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It was a massive, highly publicized event designed to launder his public image, attended by the mayor, several senators, and the city's most elite socialites. The Temple of Dendor was transformed into an extravagant banquet hall, bathed in golden light and echoing with the sound of a live string quartet. Harper stood by Damien's side near the reflecting pool, wearing a stunning, custom-draped crimson gown that cascaded over her curves like liquid fire. Heavy diamond chandeliers caught the light, but all eyes in the room were subtly drawn to the enigmatic, powerful woman standing next to the city's most dangerous man. "You are radiating anxiety," Damien noted quietly, offering her a flute of champagne. "Smile, Harper. You own this room." "Something is wrong," Harper murmured, accepting the glass but not drinking from it. Her eyes darted across the crowd, scanning the faces of the servers, the security personnel, and the guests. The waitress instincts inside her were screaming. "Explain," Damien said, his demeanor instantly shifting from relaxed billionaire to hyper-vigilant predator. "The catering staff," Harper whispered urgently, stepping slightly closer to him. "They are using Le Bernardin for the catering tonight, correct?" "Yes," Damien confirmed. "Look at the server approaching the mayor's table near the south exit," Harper instructed, her voice tight. "He's carrying a tray of past hors d'oeuvres, but his posture is completely wrong. Professional servers in high-end environments balance from the shoulder, keeping their wrists entirely straight to prevent dropping the tray. That man is gripping the tray with a locked elbow. His center of gravity is entirely off. And his shoes, he's wearing heavy, rubber-soled tactical boots, not the standard polished Oxfords required by elite catering companies." Damien's eyes locked onto the server, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack stone. "Dominic," Damien said softly into the hidden microphone clipped inside his tuxedo jacket. "South exit, the server." Before Damien's head of security could move, the disguised server dropped the silver tray. The crash of breaking crystal and scattering appetizers echoed sharply across the cavernous room. In a fraction of a second, the server reached beneath his tailored vest and pulled out a suppressed submachine gun. "Down!" Damien roared, grabbing Harper by the waist and shoving her violently behind the massive stone pillar of the ancient Egyptian temple. Chaos erupted. Screams tore through the elegant classical music as guests scrambled for cover, diving under tables and stampeding toward the emergency exits. Gunfire shattered the tranquil atmosphere, the deafening cracks echoing off the glass walls. Harper pressed her back against the cold stone, her heart hammering against her ribs. But she refused to give in to blind panic. She peeked around the edge of the pillar. The assassin was firing indiscriminately, providing cover fire. From the opposite side of the room, near the catering entrance, 3 more men, disguised as staff, drew weapons. And walking casually behind them, wearing a smug, arrogant grin, was Leo. "He's making a public move," Damien snarled, drawing a sleek black pistol from his shoulder holster. "He wants to slaughter me in front of the politicians to prove the Rossi family is vulnerable. Dominic and his men are pinned down at the main entrance." "He doesn't want just you," Harper said, her eyes locked on Leo. "He's looking for me. He wants to finish the humiliation." Damien gripped her shoulders, his eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. "Listen to me very carefully. You stay behind this pillar. You do not move. If anyone approaches, you scream." "No," Harper countered fiercely, grabbing his lapels. "You don't understand the layout. I spent a week memorizing the architectural blueprints of this museum for the security detail. There is a secondary maintenance corridor directly behind the catering prep station. It leads directly to the loading docks on 5th Avenue. If Leo and his men push forward, they will trap you against the reflecting pool. We have to move through the prep station now." Damien stared at her, assessing the absolute certainty in her eyes. In that chaotic, blood-soaked moment, he didn't see a waitress. He saw his equal. He saw a queen. "Lead the way," Damien ordered. Harper grabbed the heavy silk of her crimson gown, hiking it up above her knees, and broke into a sprint. Damien was right behind her, providing precise, deadly covering fire that dropped 2 of Leo's approaching soldiers instantly. They navigated the terrified, scrambling crowd, Harper moving with a surprising, lethal grace. She knew exactly how to weave through tables, anticipating the panicked movements of the crowd. They reached the heavy steel double doors of the catering prep station. Harper shoved them open, pulling Damien into the chaotic, stainless steel kitchen. Panicked chefs were cowering beneath the prep tables. "The service corridor!" Harper yelled, pointing toward a heavy, unmarked grey door at the back of the kitchen. Before they could reach it, the main kitchen doors burst open. Leo stood there, panting heavily, his weapon raised, an unhinged look of pure triumph in his eyes. "Well, well," Leo sneered, leveling the gun at Damien's chest. "The great Damien Rossi, running away, hiding behind a fat waitress." Damien didn't flinch. His weapon was trained directly between Leo's eyes, but Leo had the tactical advantage, standing behind the cover of the reinforced steel doors. Harper's eyes scanned the kitchen. She noticed the massive industrial deep fryer, located just 3 feet to Leo's left, filled with 50 gallons of boiling oil, its safety latch disengaged for easy draining. She didn't hesitate. Without breaking eye contact with Leo, Harper reached out and violently kicked the heavy, rolling prep cart stationed next to her. The metal cart slammed directly into the side of the deep fryer. The heavy industrial machine tipped. A tidal wave of 400-degree boiling oil cascaded across the floor, splashing directly onto Leo's legs. Leo dropped his weapon, letting out a blood-curdling, agonizing scream as he collapsed onto the slippery, scalding floor, writhing in pure agony. Damien stepped forward with terrifying calm, kicking Leo's dropped weapon out of reach. He looked down at the screaming traitor, his expression devoid of all human mercy. Then he turned to look at Harper. She was standing tall, breathing heavily, the crimson silk of her gown stained with soot and champagne, looking like an ancient goddess of war who had just descended upon the battlefield. Damien slowly holstered his weapon. He walked through the wreckage of the kitchen, ignoring the moans of his former underboss, and stopped in front of Harper. He reached up, gently wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "I was wrong," Damien whispered, his voice incredibly soft amidst the chaos. "You didn't need the dress to match your temper. The world needs to match you." He leaned down and kissed her. It was a fiercely possessive, desperate kiss that sealed a blood oath between them. Harper kissed him back with equal ferocity, wrapping her hands around his neck. The invisible waitress from the Wellington was dead. In her place stood the undisputed, irreplaceable queen of the Rossi Empire. And heaven help anyone who ever told her to make herself small again. Did Harper's ultimate revenge leave you speechless? This plus-size queen didn't just survive the Mafia. She conquered it entirely. If you loved seeing her turn the tables on her ruthless bullies and claim her ultimate crown, hit that like button right now. Share this incredible story of power and romance with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling, dramatic stories every single week. What would you have bought with the black card? Comment below.